Welcome to a series of soccer down here, ones v one or 1v1s or ones v one. Either way, it's Jason catching up with folks up at the Children's Healthcare of Atlanta Training Ground and updating you on everything going on some levels of Atlanta United that you might not be up to date on. What we like to do occasionally and fairly regular basis is find out what is going on inside the organization outside of the first and second teams. So what we do in this case is we always catch up with the Director of Methodology, Javier Perez, to find out what his observations are since the last time we talked. You get a progress report from Javier about what's going on in that particular section of the Children's Healthcare of Atlanta Training Ground, and then a conversation with Colby Childress, the U16 head coach, as Atlanta United is heading out to MLS NEXT Cup, represented in 4 separate age groups. And the tournament actually does start in suburban Salt Lake City later today, actually. And the U17s, 19s, 13s, and 14s, they're all going to be in homegrown and championship playoffs starting once again on the 24th morning local time. And so we wanted to catch up with Coach Childress and find out what's going on with his perspective as he is now in charge of the U16s and seeing them take their strides in growth and continuing to impress on an international scale. But first and foremost, here's our conversation. Jason catches up with the Director of Methodology for Atlanta United, Javier Perez.
So let's just start with the number of teams that are going from Atlanta to the national finals. What does that say for you about where the academy is right now?
Yeah, this is a good question. This is the first time in history of the club that we're going to have 4 teams in the MLS playoffs fighting for the cup, and that means more chances to touch silverware. As you know, Atlanta United strives for being a reference, not only first team but as well in player development. And I think in the last couple of years we made big steps towards that objective. I'm going to start by saying that our second team is now fourth place with a game in hand, that we have very interesting projects, prospects, players like Arif Kovac, that he scored 5 goals in the last game and gave 1 assist. And we are very proud as well of the impact of players like Cooper Sanchez or Ajani. They are academy products. They are making the impact into the first team. So that's our first and foremost objective, beyond touching silverware or doing well in competitions, is providing players the experience to compete first team at first team level, so producing players for the first team. But we have our U18s that they will compete in the U19 category. We'll have our U16s. You know that we don't have a U17 team. So the U16s that they compete in the U17 category. And then we have our U14s and our U13s. So we have 4 teams that they will compete this year in MLS NEXT Cup.
Talk a little bit about it, because we haven't had this conversation before, the idea and the mindset between, instead of U19 and U17, having a U18 and a U16 here specifically.
Yeah. Look, this is MLS, right? MLS structures the competition. So it's not our choice as such. It's a choice by MLS that MLS teams, they have U18s and U16 teams, and they compete against a year up teams that they are non-MLS.
Right. And that, what do you think that does for those players to play against kids in non-MLS academies, but are a year older, maybe a little bigger, a little stronger?
Yeah. Good question. That's the situation that our 15s that they didn't qualify, they find out, right? Maybe for the older age groups, makes sense. But for the younger players, the U15s, in our case, we were probably the strongest performers at GA Cup with the U15s, competing against Valencia, that they were ultimately the champions, and we were in a close game. Remember that Valencia won the final 4-0 against another MLS competition. So we provide the strongest competition there, and then only 3 teams out of the 30 teams in MLS, they qualified through Flex to the MLS Cup.
Right.
We won the first game, we won the second game, and the third game we lost narrowly. And for that reason, with the same amount of points, we didn't finish first because it was head-to-head, as opposed to number of wins,
right.
number of goals, and we didn't qualify with the U15s, you know. So I would say has its pros and its cons. The pros is, I would say, for the older age groups. The cons is for the younger age groups is probably a model that doesn't really work.
Yeah. It's fascinating to see how players develop, and we've had this conversation before, and when players move up the ladder, you know, you get somebody like Cooper who is almost age eligible to still play academy, who is playing first team. Is he? I thought he was.
Last year he played GA Cup.
Yeah.
He reached the semifinals of GA Cup, and he played MLS Cup. And that was his first year. He's still eligible to play.
Right.
We have the same situation with many other players. So we have Ignacio Suarez, we have Didi Cibrian, that they can play for the academy. There is a moment when certain players reach certain level, we don't bring them to those competitions anymore.
Right.
We just make sure that they are eligible that for the first team, that they can be in the best possible shape, so Coach Tata can take a look at them. And you know, when you bring them to those competitions with the academy, maybe the focus shifts. We don't want that. We want them to be focused on the first team and give them as well the right resting time that they need in order to perform. If these players, they are called once or twice a week to train with the first team.
It's a really important mindset because not every club does that. Some are focused on winning trophies with academy teams, and they would have that player go play in the academy competition, whereas you're the opposite. You'll have, with the U16s, talking to Coach Colby, a couple of injuries, a couple of guys not available, so some of those U15s go up.
Correct.
Guys move up when they're ready to move up. What does that mentality do for that young player to be tested against older kids?
Yeah, we do that, and I can give the clear example of the second team, right? Our top performers, top prospects, with the 18s and the 16s, they go straight into the second team.
Right.
And we have a good balance, a good blend of what I call performance players, that these are players that they have previous experience in MLS Next Pro, with our academy players. And these U16 players that they do well, they don't go anymore with the U18s. They go straight into the second team.
Right.
So we expose them into the entry level of professional soccer in the club, so they can gather that experience, right? Now the challenge they have is consistency, how to sustain that level of performance for a period of time. And we give them that time. So that means that we bring them with the second team, then we send them back with the 16s, and they integrate that experience that they have without having a major stress in their development.
Yeah, I mean, somebody like Amir Henry, I think about, who just debuted for the twos in Athens and is still a young developing player. It's important for them to get that taste with the twos, right?
100%. We have 10 games with Atlanta United 2, and we have 5 debuts with academy players. And that's massive for us because it gives them a first taste, a first experience, and without putting pressure on them, but they integrate what is the speed of play, how does it look like, you know, it's very different to watch it than experience it in first person. And that's a major milestone for these players.
Yeah, I feel like when you talk U16 to U18 to twos to first team, the differences between each one are so huge. How do you guys manage not just the progression, but as a soccer player, but the off the field, the mental side, the school side, all of that for those kids as they get on that journey and they start moving up levels?
Yeah, that's a great question. We integrated the players in a holistic system. That means that we are on the same page when that happens and we have regular meetings with the second team coach, with the U18s coach, with the 16s coach, but at the same time as well with the player welfare officer, the learning specialist, the psychologist. So we offer from different fronts support to the player that is needed, the player and the family in that case, right? Even myself, I have a specific day of the week that I log to speak with families and making sure that we are aligned on the support and objectives for that particular player.
I've seen on social media, which is fascinating, with how the coverage of academy players and academy teams is going. There's a lot of talk, a lot of interest about players coming to Atlanta United and coming to this academy. What does that say to you about what you've been able to put together in just a couple of years with being competitive on the field, sending guys into the first team and second team environments, and now people knocking on the door wanting to join in?
Yeah, that's, I feel very proud about how we provide that structure and offer to the players, and that's extremely important because at the end of the day we depend on the talent that we bring. And yes, we develop them, but like you said, in a couple of years I had a vision coming here. Now I have the support and I have as well the resources, you know, and that was crucial in order to establish what I thought it was a good player development system. I think we are in a good place. I think success is necessary from both fronts, from players that they have a story to tell going from the academy into the first team, like Cooper's story, and being successful as well as team, winning competitions or having success in certain competitions, you know.
Yeah, we've went through this, and I know you've went through this with your time with U.S. Soccer as well, the idea of results versus development and how some separated entirely, but you can't, right? They are related.
100%. I think it's necessary to link both of them because when the players reach, my experience is when the players reach the highest level, and if they didn't experience that kind of pressure, they don't know how to cope with that. And
100%.
that's too much to learn too quick. They need to coexist with that kind of pressure. A different story is what kind of pressure we put, right? How we manage that. But it's necessary to integrate the competition, the winning, managing the losing, and how we can build that mentality and how it is reflected in our selecting process.
And I would imagine it kind of evolves when we're talking a U13 team going to a national championship and a U18 team going to a national championship, that the emphasis on the winning side maybe is different.
100%. So we have our U13s and U14 teams that they are what I call a structurally intermediate stage, which is more focused on principles of play, development, while the 15s, 16s, and 18s, they are more focused on performance.
That makes total sense. The last one for me is, I think we're in an interesting thing with like stage of development of the club, where for the first time that I can remember, and I think it's kind of rare, honestly, in just MLS, to have not just homegrowns breaking in and playing like a Cooper, but to have veteran homegrowns like Jay, like Matt, like Will. And Will and Matt went to college and came back, but they're older guys. But they know what your 15s right now are dealing with coming through the academy. How important is it to not just have the Coopers, but to have those veteran homegrowns who are staples of the club?
Well, that's massive. And I'm going to give you a clear example. So this morning, I'm in the office, and this is 8 o'clock in the morning, and 8:05, who's walking through the door? AJ's walking through the door, and he's coming to the choose space, right?
Mm-hmm.
And you know, I stop him for a second, and I say, look, I want to thank you for coming here and being linked. And he's like, what are you talking about? This is where I come from. This is my place, you know? And I think that's huge for us to see how these players, they are still connected and they still want to come despite being top performers with the first team.
Yeah, I look at Will and Cooper specifically because Cooper reminds me so much of Will when Will was young.
Yeah.
And now, like, to see Will kind of put Cooper under his wing and put his arm around him and help him, those are the next things, I think, for a club's development.
Yeah, and look, for instance, Will, we brought him last year with the purpose to create and change the culture, being, which I think we have now, that culture with the second team, that it was incredible how the players interact and they get along and they respect each other, you know. And we brought Will with the idea of being the captain because he knew the club.
Yeah.
And with the difference that he only stayed for the first month and then he went to the second team, to the first team, and we never saw him again.
Right,
you know.
Right.
So you need to adapt. You need to adjust. But that was for us something really meaningful because we brought him with the idea to help and support the second team, and he was literally landing here and boom, straight into the first team, you know.
Matt was the same way in 24. He was signed to a twos deal when he came back and was captain, and summer he was on a first team deal.
Yeah.
It's cool to see that progression. Thank you.
And as promised, after that conversation, once again, one of the head coaches for the U sides. And he is paired up with Michael Lynch, assistant coach and head academy development scout. And so it's a conversation with Colby Childress to find out what's going on at the U16s with MLS NEXT Cup starting later today.
Let's start with where the U16s are heading into the national finals.
Yeah, we're in a good spot. Everybody's pretty fit, pretty healthy. We're on a good little run of form coming out of Flex, winning the group. We were one of the few teams that won all the games at Flex and qualified with 9 points. And we kind of rotated some guys because we had a very short rest the week after. So rotated some guys, got some guys some minutes who hadn't played a bunch, and then played Nashville away in our last game of the season. And pretty dominant performance, pretty good performance. So I think the team's spirits are high, team's motivated, team's ready to make a run again. This is the group that lost in the finals last year, right? So there's definitely motivation to get back there.
How has it been kind of managing that with, you know, a group of young players that I feel like we talk about this all the time in development, the sense of that frustration and that, okay, I want to turn this around from what happened last year, because young players don't always get that feeling.
Yeah.
How has it been this season with them saying, like, we want to get back to that and win that last game?
Yeah, I think one thing that's been interesting is obviously I came in mid-year. With Will Bates moving into the second team staff. I moved in mid-year, and this was probably the group I knew the least.
Okay.
Because at U15s, I was a U13s coach. When they were U15s, we trained at the same time. We played matches a lot at the same time.
Yeah.
So I didn't really interact with them a ton. So I think first and foremost, it was me just getting to know them on a personal level.
Yeah.
Right? I knew who they were as soccer players. I knew the talents that they had. I knew the goals that they had. But getting to know them on a personal level was kind of agenda number one. As far as dealing with getting back, I think one of the approach that I take with them is I would say I'm very process driven and not so much outcome driven. And so my challenge to the players every day is just be the best version of yourself every single day that you can be. And the talent in this room will take us pretty far, right? And I think that's something I'm a firm believer in. It's something that I try to direct them towards, because there's the short term, which is, can we make it to the make a run in playoffs, get back, right or wrong, if you will. But then there's the long term of, right, just because you achieve these short term goals of, let's say, winning a national championship, it doesn't necessarily mean you're going to achieve your long term goals as an individual of making it to Mercedes-Benz Stadium. So that's the way I kind of do it. I think the players they're a very hungry, motivated group. So getting back to the final has been on the back of their mind for a long time. And so I haven't really had to push that agenda. That's been something that I've been fortunate enough to have a group of players that just pushes that themselves.
Very cool. With this group, it's kind of such an interesting age because you get guys who are maybe just starting to taste what a professional player's life experience is. There's some of them maybe training with the twos and getting that time, but they're also still really young. How do you keep that in balance and perspective?
Yeah, it's a challenge. I think players in this space, particularly in their development, if they have to grow up fast, if they want to make it into the professional environment, because you see, like, Cooper's very young and he's flourishing, he's flying, and so I think it's trying to help them instill a certain level of discipline, a certain level of self-awareness of, okay, this is where you are right now, this is where you want to be. What are the steps that it's going to take to get you there? And it's not going to be one big step. It's going to be a series of micro steps, and every day is important, and every day is part of that process. And that's where I just continue to fall back on be the best version of yourself every single day. And I think when you look at it that way, you're very self-driven, you're very self-focused, and ultimately it becomes about trying to fulfill your own individual potential, as opposed to maybe going after one specific individual goal.
And the relationship with Javier and the other coaches in the academy, because guys move up and rosters change a lot, especially with your group.
Oh yeah, that's a fun piece of the job, right? It's challenging in the sense of sometimes you're not really sure who you're going to have, but it's also that's what the pathway is there for. It's to push players on and give them opportunity when they've earned it. And so if I'm fortunate enough to have created a really strong relationship with Steven Turk, the 18s coach, with Will through this transition even before in the second team, and then Jose being the second team coach. We have a group thread that we're always texting on, staying updated. We're always giving feedback to each other with how players are performing in environments, and something that I'm very appreciative of is Jose and Will do a really good job of sending a message to players who might come back down into a younger environment. Or their own age environment of, hey, there is an expectation level for you, right? You've been up here, you are up here for a reason. So when you come back down, like, there's an expectation for you to not just perform, but also lead the group in a positive way. And we've got a lot of good kids that have really risen to that challenge.
How have the national team call-ups impacted your guys as well? Because you've had a lot of those.
Yeah, I would say earlier on in the season, it was a little bit more challenging just because there was multiple camps, and it seemed you always had 2 or 3 guys in every camp. So from a just a continuity standpoint, even for me, like trying to get to know the players, they'd be in, they'd be out, they'd be in, they'd be out. So if that's always a challenge, but it's really cool for us to see so many players within our club, within a specific age group, getting opportunities. I think it just reflects the quality that we have in the team. And so for me, it's always being willing to work with those guys and give them those opportunities, because it's something that they strive for. And we had 2 kids that went to the Vertex Cup event where U.S. played, I believe it was Argentina, England, and Mexico. And so, again, they're challenges to work in, but again, it's helping prepare them for, hopefully, right, their future, right, in those international windows. And what I love about it is it gives other players opportunities. Right? It gives opportunities to players who maybe have been a little bit more on the back end, and they go in, and those guys have done a great job as well when they've gotten their minutes.
That's the more underrated part of this. And doing what you do, I'm sure you get to see these kids grow up. And you see some of them who, for whatever reason, maybe they're just the second best center back or the third best center back in the group, and 2 are playing. So they wait for their opportunity, and when they get it, it can change their life. We've seen it over the years.
Absolutely. And if it's so rewarding as a coach to see a player who comes in and if maybe doesn't get what he deserves on a week in, week out, especially in this group where
it happens. There's so much talent.
So much talent. And then when you give a guy a chance, and they take it, man, it just, to me, that's one of the most rewarding parts of the job. And that's something that I try to make sure all the players know, that I trust them and that I believe in them, and that it's not a matter, I always tell them, it's not a matter of if, it's a matter of when you get your opportunity. And so doing everything you need to do on a day-to-day basis is going to set you up to be to have the most opportunity for success when that comes. So again, this group just as a whole has done a really good job of grasping onto that message, and that's why they've been such a joy to work with.
It feels like a group that when I've had a chance to see them play and call games with the broadcast, they have a lot of strong personalities in it on the field. Do those always match up off the field as well?
Yeah, if a lot of personality. I think if I'm also a big personality. So we definitely have our fun in the training environment. There's sometimes personalities can, I won't say clash, but they can combat.
100%.
If I love it.
That's not a bad thing.
No, if I think it prepares them for the game. I think it all stems from such a good place too. Like these guys love each other. They care about each other. They've been together for a long time, and it all stems from like this competitive spirit where ultimately they want to win. Not just every game. They want to win every repetition in training. They want to win every bout in training. And so sometimes it's a little bit like finding the balance of like calming it down, but letting it kind of fuel more competition. I think it's enjoyable. I always prefer a group. I find myself enjoying a little bit more a group where there's big personalities and you're having to like kind of manage that than where you're having to try to draw it out of the players. And ultimately, if you're going to survive on that first team pitch as a young player, you got to have some backbone, right? You don't have to always be a loud, yelling personality, but you do have to have a sense of self-belief and a sense of willing to stand up for yourself, and these guys have it.
When you look at going into this tournament, what is the thing that you believe people will watch your team play and walk away saying, like, they play like this?
Yeah, I think they're going to say we're a team that plays off the front foot. If we're very aggressive, we want to push the ball forward quickly. We want to get it in the opponent's half. We want to try and play as much of the game there. They're going to see a group that creates a lot of chances from different players. We can do it through the right, through the left, through the central areas, through transition, through a more of a longer build-up. I think that's something that this group has had as a reputation for a while now. And then just the willingness to press, the willingness to run, the athleticism of the group, almost a little bit of like rock and roll football, right? Where we're going to push the game, we're going to be in your face, we're going to fight, we're going to battle. A really, really entertaining style of football.
This is the group that I feel like, in terms of pressing, has been the one that stands out to me. Like, it's a little different and a little more in your face.
Yeah.
Which is really interesting that it's all come together with that age group.
Yeah, I think the athleticism of the group really helps.
For sure.
If we've got some engines, if we've got some just freak athletes, but ultimately it comes down to that like relentless mentality. Like they just want to compete and they want to go and they want to assert their dominance. And even when they get a little fatigued, they still have that in the back of their mind, and it just continues to push them forward. And the guys who come into the game to change the game for us, they have the same mentality. Like, okay, it's my turn now. How can I raise the level of the pressing? And yeah, you're spot on. Like it's very, very in your face and very relentless.
Yeah.